Hello everyone, this is Jaron from MarineAndReef.com, and today we're here talking about Kessil Aquarium Lights. Now, I have used Kessil Aquarium Lights for over 10 years now. I think I have some lights at home that are from 2012, and I used them before that, so I guess it's been over 10 years. And I'm a huge fan of Kessil Lights. What really got me to use Kessil Lights is years ago I was working at an aquarium shop, and LED lights were still very new. And we were selling LED lights in the shop, but I found we were having some issues with them. Now, in the shop, with nerdy people like me who really knew what we were doing, we could get them to work, we could grow beautiful plants and beautiful corals under them. But we would sell these lights to a customer, and we had these issues where someone would take these expensive, multiple hundreds of dollar, even thousands of dollar lights in a big tank home, and then they'd kill all their coral because they didn't tune the lights correctly. Or they would have issues connecting to the Wi-Fi on the lights, and they would flash or be unsynced together. And I just kind of came to the conclusion, like, yeah, these lights are great, but I've had a lot of headaches with them. And that was when I came and kind of told the same story I told you guys to Paul, who is now one of the partners here at Marine and Reef. And he said, you need to try a Kessil light. It's a lot easier to use. You're not going to have the same problems. And at the time, I tried an original Kessil A150. We're now several generations past that. Put it on a reef tank at home, and it just worked. And that had me sold because I found an LED light that gave the energy benefits that looked really attractive, but it didn't have a lot of the headaches I was getting with other lights. And since then, I've used lots and lots of Kessil lights. So we do believe in Kessil lights, but I know that as you look here on the table, there's a lot of Kessil lights, and it's really confusing. So today, we'd like to do an overview of the Kessil lighting family. We're going to let you know what the difference is between the three colors that Kessil lights come in. We're going to let you know what's the difference between the different sizes of Kessil lights. Which light do I need for my aquarium based on how big your aquarium is and how much coverage you need. And then we're going to go over how to control the lights and also some of the accessories, such as mounting accessories or lenses or other things that you may want with your Kessils. So when you're looking at the Kessil lights, probably the first thing you should consider is which color of Kessil light do I want. Now, Kessil makes lights in three colors. The Tuna Blue, which would be like this 500X here. The Tuna Flora, like this little guy here, is 80. And the Tuna Sun, like this guy here, this 160. The Tuna Blue is going to be a blue dominant spectrum. It's the light that's on this reef aquarium here. And it's going to be most popular with any kind of saltwater aquarium. Whether it's a saltwater just fish tank where you don't have corals, but you do have fish you want to display, this would be the color I go with. In a reef aquarium, be the color that I go with. And there may be some people with, say, some cichlid tanks that like that kind of saltwater blue dominant color. So it's possible you could choose to go with the Tuna Blue in one of those. For most people with freshwater tanks, they're going to want this Tuna Sun color. The Tuna Sun color looks like sunlight. That's why it's called the Tuna Sun. So whereas this Tuna Blue has a distinct blue hint to it, that's going to give you the fluorescence of your corals, and it kind of gives you that look that's more accustomed to like a deep water reef. The Tuna Sun's going to give you more of a shallow water look. So that's going to be most popular with freshwater aquariums, but there's other things you could use it for. You could use it on, say, of course, a pludarium where you have some land plants exposed as well. You could use it on a mangrove tank. The mangrove tank would be saltwater, but maybe you're looking for more of a bright daylight look rather than that blue look. And you could also use it, say, on a saltwater refugium where you're trying to grow algae. You generally would get a little bit better growth out of that daylight spectrum versus the blue spectrum you get on the Tuna Blue. But again, if you have freshwater, it's going to be that Tuna Sun, and there's also some other applications where you may want that more white daylight light. The last color that Kessil makes is this, what I'm going to call the Tuna Flora or H series Kessil. And this Kessil is specifically a grow light. And originally this was not even marketed towards aquarium keepers. But what reason it made it into aquarium keeping was because it was very popular, and it still is very popular, to use algae-based filters such as refugiums, algae turf scrubbers. And people were trying to buy these to grow the algae, and then eventually Kessil said, we should probably try to sell these to the aquarium market. So I would not put one of these on a display where you want something to look beautiful. This light's going to be a really distinct purple color, and it looks really ugly. But it grows algae really fast. So under Refugium, it's a great choice. You could also use this on a freshwater plant grow out tank. Again, it's going to look really weird, so I wouldn't use it on a display tank, but maybe you're trying to grow water plants, trade them with your friends, or sell them. You will get really good growth with the H-Series Tuna Flora Kessil. All right, so we're going to proceed knowing that you guys have an idea of what color of Kessil light that you want. Well, now the question is, what size do I need? So this is going to be based off of kind of what job that you're doing, if you have a big tank to light up, if you have a small tank to light up, and also the different available sizes that Kessil has. So I realized as I was doing this, I was going to say, this one is my favorite, but I realized I can say that with almost every size. But the first size is the smallest, which is the Kessil A80. It's the very smallest of the Kessil lights. It is a 15-watt light, and I really like this light. I use 3 of them over my little desk tank, and that's really where this light is best suited. It's great for little small desk reef tanks or small pico and nano planted tanks. It's 15 watts, and one thing that really makes it unique is while there's other 15-watt lights in the market, none of them are as high-end as this. None of them have the same glitter lines and shimmer, the same control options. It is the highest-end little nano light that you can buy. And the other thing I like is it is passively cooled, which means it has no fan. So when I'm sitting at my desk and I hate the sound of fan noise constantly, this has no fan noise. It's completely dead quiet. Generally, I would recommend on the Tuna Blue, the saltwater spectrum, you use one A80 for about a 12-inch by 12-inch by 12-inch area, about a 1-foot cube. So that's a pretty small tank. You can use multiple together. And if you have a bigger tank than that, you may want to step up to a larger size. I would say on a freshwater tank, for what I'm going to call a medium demand plant, not anything super highlight, but probably indicative of most people, you can use one A80 for about an 18-inch by 18-inch by 18-inch cube. So you may use multiple if you say have a 30-inch long tank, but about one of these per 18 inches. And then if you're looking at the Refugium version, the H80, I would generally say this is good for aquariums 75 gallons and down. So it's not really a shape, but if I'm trying to filter a reef aquarium or a saltwater aquarium with the Refugium, if it was 75 gallons or less, this would be a great choice. The next size up is our 160 size light. The 160 size light was the original size that Kessil came out with, and this does come in all 3 colors. It comes in a Tuna Blue, a Tuna Sun, and a Tuna Flora. If you're using the Tuna Blue version, it's a great reef light for nano aquariums. It can generally light 18-inch by 18-inch by 18-inch area for a mixed reef aquarium. That's one with a variety of different corals, some hard corals at the top and then some lower demand corals at the bottom. For a planted aquarium, generally a 24-inch cube, so 24, 24, 24. You can get a nice medium demand planted tank lit with that light, and you can link multiple together if you have a larger tank. And if you're looking at the Refugium version, the H-Series, I would generally say that's good for aquariums up to 150 gallons for a Refugium. You do need a lot of power for that Refugium, but that will cover a lot of good-sized aquariums if you want to light it up and get some algae filtration. The next size is the 360 size of light, and this is actually the most popular size. It's the size that's here, the size that's over the BioCube in the back. This is a 90-watt light, and it's the size that fits most people's needs best. So in the Tuna Blue version, this is a great light for a 24-inch by 24-inch by 24-inch area for a mixed aquarium. On the Tuna Sun version, if you're looking for a planted tank, again, a medium demand tank, about a 30-inch, 30-inch, 30-inch area, which is actually pretty good coverage. These are also popular with highlight freshwater plant keepers. So highlight freshwater plant keepers can almost never put enough light on a tank. So you may see this over an 18-inch cube with someone really trying to grow some super highlight plants. And then if you're looking at the Refugium version of this, the H-Series, we generally would say that's good for aquariums up to 250 gallons. So if you have a 250-gallon tank with the Refugium spot in your sump, one of these would be a good size light to give you some good algae filtration. Now we're stepping it up to the big boy lights. So there are 2 more Kessil lights, and these ones both only come in the blue color. The first one is the AP9X, which seems to be at the bottom of the stack here. That light is probably my favorite. I have 2 of these lights at home, and it's a panel style light. So while most Kessil lights have a single light puck, that one has 2 light pucks and is made to spread the light out. So that light is a great choice for about a 2 foot by 3 foot by 2 foot tall mixed reef aquarium. It's an aquarium with a mixture of SPS or high demand coral at the top and then some lower light stuff at the bottom. Or if you want a really high demand SPS dominant tank, about 1 every 2 feet. So you could, say on a 6 foot aquarium, use 3 of those for really high light, or you could probably just use 2 if you had a mixed tank with a little bit of everything in there. That light is also the only one of the Kessil lights that has built-in control. You don't need a separate controller. It has Wi-Fi built in. And you can also link other Kessil lights to it. So if you had a light in your Refugium, you don't need a separate controller from that. You just run a cable from your 9X to, say, your H360 or your Tuna Sun 360 in your sump, and it can control that light through the built-in Wi-Fi that comes with the light. It's probably the most high-end light that Kessil offers. The last light that Kessil has is the 500X. And this is not a light I recommend for a lot of people, and it's because this light was originally designed for public aquariums where they had display tanks up to 20 feet deep. Now, most of us don't have that. A lot of us wish we had that, but we don't. So this light is a 180 watt light, which is the same intensity as the 9X, but instead of splitting the power into 2 pucks, it has a single puck, and that gives it a lot of penetrating power, a huge amount of light in a small area. These are going to be able to light a 30-inch by 30-inch area in most standard sized aquariums. But if you have a very deep aquarium, say a 3 foot deep or deeper, this is definitely the light I would go with. It's going to push a lot of intensity very deep. For most customers, you're probably going to want to pick the 9X over the 500X simply because the way the light is shaped is better on the 9X for most relatively normal height aquariums, 2 foot, maybe 30 inches, and only if you have a very deep tank would the 500X be better. So hopefully this helps you guys out. You know which size of light you're looking for at this point. So now you know which color of Kessil light you want and what size of Kessil light you want. The next most common question is, how do I control Kessil lights? So if you're like me and you've done this for a long time, you're used to old fluorescent lights simply turned on and off. Well, one of the big selling points of going to an LED is that LED lights can dim up and down. You can also adjust the color. Yes, Dave?
Can you do a lightning effect?
You can do a lightning effect. So we're going to go over which lights can do what, but a lot of these lights can do lightning effects, cloud effects, they have an aurora effect, and
can you
also
do a moonlight effect?
And they have moonlight effects on some of them.
Can you do the phases of the moon?
They have the phases of the moon.
Can you do a solar eclipse?
Yeah, you can turn them off.
Good enough.
And there's also a red moonlight and a blue moonlight. So there is lots of control options. The question is, how do I access them? So we're going to go over what control options work with which light. So with the 2 smallest lights, which are the 80 and 160, these lights have knobs on the top. So if you're old school like Dave and you don't want the effects, you can go ahead and basically just set the intensity of the light, set the color of the light, plug it in, and it'll turn on. And this is really good if you're looking for something super simple. You don't want to mess with it. I know a lot of guys, say at a frag swap where they're selling corals, are like, do I really want to open an app to control my lights, or do I just want to adjust the knobs to where it looks good? So you can do that if you'd like, but if you're like me at home, I like the sunrise and sunset and the other effects. So to unlock those on the smaller lights, there's a connection that is a 0 to 10 volt, where it looks like kind of a headphone jack. Back when headphones had cords, that's what this looks like. So with those lights, you can connect them to the Kessil Spectral Controller X. That's going to let you adjust the color within the realm of each light. So within the tuna blue, it's going to be blue dominant, but you got really blue and you got less blue. Within the tuna sun, you've got a white color, but you kind of got a warm red white, or you got a cool white that you can adjust the color between. And then you can also add in throughout the day as it ramps up and down and changes color. You can add in weather effects. And these 2 lights can do cloud effects and lightning effects, but that's it. So these ones do not do the moonlight, which I know is a big bummer to a lot of people. The other lights can, but the 2 smallest lights can't. One thing to note is the 0 to 10 volt port on these lights can connect to other controllers that aren't from Kessil. So you can use a Neptune Apex controller to connect to them and dim them up and down. You can use a CoreView Hydros controller to connect to them and dim them up and down. And there's probably a lot of other controllers that have that port, so you don't necessarily need to get the Spectral controller. However, all of those other control options don't have the weather effects. So if you want those, you'll need to use your Spectral Controller X. Now, with the next group of lights, we're going to look at the 360X and 500X. These lights have knobs on the top, just like the 160 and 80. So you can just adjust the knobs, plug it into a timer, have them turn on. But if you want to unlock those features, you got a couple of options. You can use either the Spectral Controller X or the Wi-Fi dongle. The Wi-Fi dongle just attaches to the top, and then it lets you use an app to control the lights. The Spectral Controller X has a little wire that connects to a light and then allows you to control it. With both of these devices, and I should say this is also true of the last two, when I connect one Wi-Fi dongle, I can connect up to 20 lights that are controlled with that one dongle. So if, say, I have a 6-foot tank with 3 lights on it, I buy one controller or one dongle, then I buy a cable to link the lights together, and that one controller can control all of the lights in that strand. So you don't necessarily need one for each light. And with these lights, you get the ramping up and down throughout the day. You can adjust the color throughout the day. You can add in the cloud effects. You can add in the lightning effects. But there's also a moonlight feature, which I really like because you can't leave your lights on all the time, but I want to look at the tank at all times. So that moonlight feature is going to give you a dim light in the tank. It can be either red or blue. And then it will also replicate the phases of the moon. I know Dave was really excited about that. So sometimes it's going to be brighter than other times. And when there's no moon, it'll give you no light. I've had people think it's broken. That's because it's trying to replicate that moon phase. So that'll give you that moon effect. And that's a really nice feature a lot of people like. So again, the 500X and 360X, you want to use Spectral Controller or Wi-Fi dongle. You need one per strand, but you can put 20 lights in that strand and just link them together. The last light up here is the 9X, which is Kessil's kind of flagship premium light. This light has basically a built-in Wi-Fi dongle. So the app is exactly the same as with the Wi-Fi dongle, except you don't need to purchase anything separate. So right out of the box, you can connect to the light using Wi-Fi. You can program it to ramp up and down. You can program all of the weather effects. But uniquely, the ports in the back of this light can connect to any of the other Kessil lights. You can connect to the 80s, the 160s, the 500s, the 360Xs, and you can use that light as a base to dim and control all of them. So if you're mixing and matching different lights in one tank, you don't need to buy an additional controller. You just run a wire from that 9X to all the other lights. If you have more than one 9X, they each have integrated control, so you can connect to them. I would strongly recommend you run a wire between them. And that's simply because it's going to make your programming process a lot easier. Instead of having to log into the Wi-Fi of the first light, then log into the Wi-Fi of the next light, then log into the Wi-Fi of the next light. If you run the cable, you simply connect to the first light and immediately all of the lights are discovered. You don't have to set up different logins for each one, and it's going to make it a lot smoother. So if you do use more than one 9X, I would recommend you use a cable to link them, but you get all the features. And that basically sums up control. You got a Wi-Fi dongle, you got a Spectral Controller X, and you got control integrated into the 9X. And that should let you do what you want to as far as dimming the lights up and down throughout the day. All right, now you know what color of Kessil light, you know what size of Kessil light, you know how you want to control it. But there's a whole bunch of other Kessil accessories out there. The most common are going to be ways of mounting your light. So these lights do need to go over the aquarium, but aquariums come in all shapes and sizes, and there's a lot of ways you could want to mount it. So Kessil has a lot of options for you. Probably the most common and basic way to mount the light is with this gooseneck. You can kind of see this gooseneck is basically like a bendy flex arm that you can mount the light on the end of. And this is really popular in particular with freshwater aquarists who are looking for planted aquariums. Oftentimes you'll see plants growing out of the water, so you don't really want the light at a right angle. You may want it off at an angle so you're growing a tree out of the water. I've also seen this with Julian Sprung's mangrove setup. So the mangrove tree is growing out of the water, and he uses the flexible arm to angle it. There's additional accessories you can add on, like this Kessil angled adapter, which kind of lets you reach up even further. And again, that's really common if people have some plants growing out of the water and you want to lift the light up and angle it. Probably my favorite mount is going to be the Kessil mounting arm. The Kessil mounting arm works with the 160, 360, and 500X, and it's a rigid arm that's hollow in the middle. And the nice thing is it's going to hold your light at a perfect right angle, and it's going to let the cable that links one light to the next light, as well as the power cable, hide in that arm, so you get less of a cord octopus, so it looks really, really clean. I will note that this works for that 360, 160, and 500X. If you use 2, you can also use it to mount to the 9X, but you can't use 1. So if you want one arm to mount to your 9X, there's a specialized 9X mounting arm that only works for the 9X, but it's also one mount, has the same hollow tube to hide your cords, and it also has an articulating end so you can angle the light if you wanted to, say, move it forward and angle it back, because that displays your corals a little bit better or something like that. Lastly, we do sell some special Kessil mounts. They are not made by Kessil, but we do sell them. I'm going to call the canopy mount. And these mounts are ones that are specifically for screwing the light into a flat top canopy. You could also use it, say, to a ceiling. And for those who have that flat top canopy or ceiling, these are great because you can screw it in very easily and then angle them in the direction that you want. They're compatible with the 360X and 500X. If you want to mount your 9X in a canopy, there's a dedicated hanging kit you can use. And there's also some screw holes in the top that you can use to mount it to that canopy. If you want to mount an 80 to a canopy, included in the box is a little bracket that's really easy to screw into a flat top canopy, and so you can mount that light. So you've got a variety of options there. Beyond the mounting options, there's still more accessories.
But wait,
I know there's still more. The most common of which are going to be the Kessil angle adapters, and we actually have one here. These come in 2 sizes, a 55 degree and a 35 degree, I believe. And what they do is they focus your light down. They work with the 360X and 500X. And there's a couple reasons why you could want that. One reason could be that your tank is really deep. You have a 3-foot deep tank and you're wanting to punch the light all the way to the bottom. That means you may want that narrow lens to focus the light down. It's really popular with the 500 because the 500 is kind of designed for 3 feet deep or deeper tanks. You may also just want to lift the light off the surface. So I've had times where I'm at a frag swap, I'm trying to show off coral to people, and if the light's at the surface, it's kind of getting in the way, and I'm trying to point in. So I want to lift the light up to give me more room to work. I also think it just generally makes your lights last longer because even though these lights have water-resistant and waterproof components, splashing salt water on your lights is a bad idea. So lifting them up tends to give you less splashing on those lights. This 360 here has the narrow reflector. As you can see, it simply magnets on. The light kind of spills out, and then I can put it on to focus it down. This lets me get the light a little bit higher, so it's easier for me to get in the tank and clean it. Hopefully that gives you an idea of all the different accessories you could use in your Kessil lights. You got an idea of what color you want, what size you want, how you want to control it, how you're going to mount it, if you want any accessories. And if you like that, please stay tuned because we have some more videos on how to program your light, how long your light should run for, what color settings you should use for your light, how high your light should be off the water, and that can help you guys get the most out of your new Kessil light. Thank you very much.